Alright, so let's talk about something. When you think of a national army, what comes to mind? Probably a lot of marching, a lot of camouflage, and maybe a stern-looking general with more medals than a Christmas tree has ornaments. And look, you're not wrong, but today we're diving into an army that breaks a lot of those molds. A force that's as complex and debated as the region it protects. The Israeli Army, or the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF. We're going to explore some genuinely fascinating facts about this institution, and I promise you, some of these are going to make you go, wait, what, for real? Because the IDF isn't just about what you see on the news, it's woven into the very fabric of Israeli society in ways that are pretty unique. It's a place where your high school classmate could become your commanding officer, where tech startups are born in military intelligence units, and where a mandatory duty for most citizens shapes the entire nation's outlook. We're talking about a system that's part Silicon Valley incubator, part global peacekeeper, and part elite fighting force. It's a mix that you just don't see anywhere else. So get comfortable because we're going to peel back the layers. We'll look at everything from who serves and why to the groundbreaking technology they've created, and even their surprising roles in places far from any battlefield. This isn't about taking sides, it's about understanding. It's about looking at the facts, the controversies, and the human stories behind one of the most talked about military forces in the world. And trust me, it's a story worth hearing. So let's start with the most fundamental thing that makes the Israeli army so different. In most countries, joining the military is a choice, it's a career path. You see the posters, join the Navy, see the world, right? In Israel, it's not really a choice, it's a chapter of your life. It's called conscription, or mandatory service. When you turn 18, just as you're thinking about college or a gap year, or how to get your parents to stop asking what you're doing with your life, the government sends you a letter, and it's not an invitation to a party, it's your draft notice. For most Jewish, Druze, and Circassian citizens, this is just a fact of life. Men are typically required to serve for about 32 months, while women serve for 24 months. Think about that for a second. Your entire peer group, pretty much everyone you went to high school with, puts their individual plans on hold to enter this massive shared experience. It completely shapes the social landscape. It means that by the time you're 21, you've likely handled responsibilities that people in other countries won't face until they're 30, if ever. It's a national rite of passage. Now, it's not everyone. There are exemptions. Israeli Arabs are largely exempt, though some do volunteer. Ultra-Orthodox Jews can often get deferments to study in a yeshiva, which, by the way, is a huge point of contention within Israeli society. Imagine telling your neighbor you can't help mow the community lawn because you're busy reading, while they have to do it for 3 years. It creates tension. But for the vast majority, service is the great equalizer. The rich kid from Tel Aviv is bunking with the farmer's son from a kibbutz, and they're all complaining about the same bad food. Now, every army has its special forces, the best of the best, the guys who make James Bond look like he's just playing dress-up. But Israel's special forces are on another level of legend and secrecy. The most famous of these is Sayeret Matkal. Even the name sounds intimidating. These guys are the ghosts. They are the Israeli equivalent of the US Delta Force or the British SAS, but with a reputation that's almost mythical. Their primary role is deep reconnaissance, intelligence gathering behind enemy lines, and counter-terrorism. The operations they're famous for sound like they're ripped straight from a Hollywood script. The most legendary is probably Operation Entebbe in 1976. An Air France plane was hijacked and flown to Uganda. Sayeret Matkal commandos flew over 2,500 miles, disguised their transport planes to look like the Ugandan president's convoy, stormed the terminal, rescued over 100 hostages, and were out of there in under an hour. The only commando killed was the unit's commander, Yonatan Netanyahu, the older brother of Benjamin Netanyahu. It was an operation so audacious, so ridiculously bold, it became the gold standard for special forces missions worldwide. But Sayeret Matkal isn't the only elite club. There's Shayetet 13, the naval commandos, who are basically Navy SEALs that can probably order a fantastic shawarma after a mission. There's Shaldag, the Air Force commando unit specializing in forward air control and special reconnaissance. These units are incredibly selective. Thousands of the fittest, smartest, and toughest soldiers apply, and only a handful make it through the grueling selection process, which is designed to break you physically and, more importantly, mentally. They are the IDF's surgical scalpel, used for the most critical and dangerous missions. Here's something that might surprise you. Some of the technology you use every day, like the USB flash drive, Waze navigation, or the first instant messaging program, has its roots in the Israeli military. Israel is often called the startup nation, and a huge reason for that is the IDF. The army acts as a massive, government-funded tech incubator. It takes the country's brightest young minds, gives them access to cutting-edge resources, and presents them with life-or-death problems that need solving. Now that's motivation. The most famous example, of course, is the Iron Dome. You've seen the videos, rockets flying in and then they're intercepted in mid-air by another missile. It looks like a video game, but it's a real-life defensive shield. Developed by Israeli defense companies, it's designed to shoot down short-range rockets and artillery shells. It has a sophisticated radar that tracks incoming threats, calculates their trajectory, and only fires an interceptor if the rocket is heading towards a populated area. It's an incredible piece of tech designed for a very specific and very unfortunate problem. But it goes so much deeper than just missiles. The IDF's intelligence units, like the legendary Unit 8200, are basically talent farms for the global tech industry. These 18-year-old kids are thrown into the deep end of cybersecurity, data analysis, and signals intelligence. By the time they finish their service, they've got more practical experience than many people get in a decade. So they get out, team up with their army buddies and think, hey, we use this algorithm to track terrorists. Maybe we can use it to help you find the fastest route to get a burrito? And that's how military innovation spills over and changes civilian life. For most of military history across the world, combat was seen as a man's job. The front lines were a no-girls-allowed club. But Israel started challenging that idea a long time ago. In fact, women have been part of Israel's defense since before the country even officially existed, serving in underground militias. When the IDF was formed in 1948 during the War of Independence, women served in a variety of roles, including as combat soldiers, out of sheer necessity. It wasn't a political statement, it was a matter of survival. After that initial war, women were mostly moved into non-combat roles, serving as instructors, clerks, and support staff. But that started to change again in the 1990s. A landmark case brought by a woman named Alice Miller, who wanted to be an Air Force pilot, went all the way to the Israeli Supreme Court. She won, and it opened the floodgates. The court ruled that the IDF had to allow qualified women into combat roles that were previously closed to them. It was a pivotal moment that put Israel way ahead of many other Western nations on this issue. Today, women in the IDF are not just a novelty, they're an integral part of the force. They serve as pilots, naval officers, and infantry soldiers in co-ed combat battalions like the Caracal Battalion, which patrols the border with Egypt. Now it's not without its debates. There are ongoing discussions about physical standards, the social dynamics of mixed-gender units, and religious objections. But the fact remains, nearly all combat roles are now open to women who can pass the training. It's a testament to the idea that in the IDF, your ability matters more than your gender. In a neighborhood as rough as the Middle East, you need friends. And while Israel's relationships with its immediate neighbors can be, let's say, complicated, its military has built strong partnerships with countries all over the globe. This isn't just about buying and selling weapons. It's about deep strategic cooperation. The most important of these partnerships by far is with the United States. The U.S. provides Israel with billions of dollars in military aid annually, which helps fund things like the Iron Dome and the acquisition of advanced fighter jets like the F-35. These collaborations often take the form of joint military exercises. For example, the Juniper Cobra is a massive biennial exercise where American and Israeli forces practice ballistic missile defense together. But it's not just the U.S. The Israeli Air Force frequently trains with other air forces from NATO countries like Greece, Italy, and Germany. Flying an Israeli fighter jet wing-to-wing with a German one over Europe carries a historical weight that is impossible to ignore. It's a powerful symbol of how much the world has changed. This cooperation is a two-way street. Israel's expertise in counterterrorism, cybersecurity, and desert warfare is highly sought after. Military delegations from around the world regularly visit Israel to learn from the IDF's experiences. They share intelligence, tactics, and technology. These partnerships are a cornerstone of Israel's defense doctrine. In a region where it is numerically and geographically at a disadvantage, building a global network of powerful allies is not just a good idea, it's essential for survival, creating a web of mutual interests that extends far beyond the Middle East. So you've done your 2 or 3 years of mandatory service. You've handed in your uniform, you've grown your hair out, you've gone on that long backpacking trip to India or South America. That's practically another rite of passage for Israelis. You're done, right? Free to live your civilian life? Well, not exactly. Welcome to the world of Miluim, or reserve duty. For many Israelis, their military service doesn't really end when they leave the base. It just becomes a part-time gig for the next 20 years. After completing their mandatory service, most non-officer soldiers are placed in the reserve forces until they're around 40 years old. This means that for up to a month every year, they can be called up for training or active deployment. Imagine you're a lawyer, a chef, or a software engineer. One day you're in a board meeting and the next, you get a call, and you have to trade your suit or your apron for your old army fatigues. You leave your job, your family, and your normal life behind to rejoin your unit. This system is the backbone of the IDF's strength. Israel has a relatively small standing army, but it can mobilize a huge, well-trained force in a matter of hours. The reserves are the country's insurance policy. It also means that the line between civilian and soldier is constantly blurred. The CEO of your company might be a tank commander in his reserve unit. Your university professor might be an intelligence analyst. This shared, ongoing duty creates a unique social bond, but it also comes at a cost, disrupting careers and family life year after year. It's a lifelong commitment to national defense. When you think of an army, you usually think of conflict. You think of them going into dangerous places for combat missions. But the IDF has another, very different reputation on the world stage as first responders. The IDF's Home Front Command has a highly specialized search and rescue unit that is often one of the first international teams to arrive on the scene of major natural disasters anywhere in the world. They have a mandate to deploy within hours of a catastrophe. We've seen it time and time again. A devastating earthquake hits Haiti. The IDF is there setting up a field hospital. A catastrophic tsunami strikes Japan. An Israeli aid delegation is on the ground. A building collapses in Mexico City or even Surfside, Florida. The Israeli search and rescue experts are there, tunneling through the rubble, using their unique skills and technology to find survivors. These missions are purely humanitarian. They are there to save lives regardless of politics or religion. The IDF Field Hospital in particular is incredible. It can be set up in under 12 hours and provides advanced medical care including operating rooms, intensive care units, and pediatric wards. It's often the most advanced medical facility in a disaster zone. For a country and a military so often defined by conflict, these humanitarian missions show a completely different face to the world. It's a side of the IDF that often gets lost in the headlines, a reminder that the same soldiers trained for war are also trained to bring aid and hope in times of peace and in times of crisis. So there you have it. From mandatory service that shapes an entire generation, to elite commandos straight out of a spy movie, to tech that changes our daily lives, and a commitment to showing up when disaster strikes anywhere in the world. The Israeli army is so much more complex than the one-dimensional image we often see. It's a reflection of the country itself, innovative, controversial, resilient, and in a constant state of navigating immense challenges. It's an institution that's deeply intertwined with the identity of its people, for better and for worse. Of course, we've only scratched the surface. The IDF is a subject of intense debate, and every fact we've discussed has a dozen different perspectives and controversies attached to it. Its role in the ongoing conflict with the Palestinians, the ethics of its operations, the social pressures of mandatory service, these are all critical conversations that deserve their own deep dives. Our goal today wasn't to give you all the answers, but to give you a broader picture and maybe challenge some preconceived notions. And now, I want to hear from you. What did you find the most surprising? Was it the idea of 18-year-olds creating world-changing tech? The fact that women have been in combat roles for so long? Or maybe you have personal knowledge or a different perspective on the Israeli army that you'd like to share? Drop it in the comments below. Let's get a real conversation going, because the more we understand these complex institutions, the better we can understand our world. Thanks for watching.